Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Mishal Saeed, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're thrilled to have Mike Thomas, the CEO of Track Selling Institute, joining us. Mike is a seasoned sales expert who's transforming how businesses grow through his proprietary track selling system, helping sales teams achieve consistent results with a structured, repeatable process. With over 20 years of experience in sales and leadership, he's empowering companies to close more deals and scale effectively. We'll explore his story with really taking over the Track Selling Institute, how it's revolutionizing sales training, and what his vision looks like for scaling this mission-driven firm. So with that being said, let's dive in. Mike, welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks, Michelle. I really appreciate being here. That's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolute pleasure having you on today. Let's go down memory lane. Take us back to the beginning. What inspired you to want to take over the Track Selling Institute and start scaling this?
Let me go back about 65 years, if I can.
Go ahead.
There was a gentleman named Max Sachs, Maxsacks. Max Sachs, he started effectively the Max Sachs Institute back then, and he was running it, but he decided to retire and he sold it to a guy named Roy Chitwood. And Roy basically took the concept of track selling and evolved it and developed it into a powerhouse of sales training. So that happened through the 70s, 80s, 90s, up into the 2000s. And the company has trained over 250,000 people across 3,000 companies over that time period. Unfortunately, Roy passed away in 2015, and there was really nobody in his organization to take over. So the organization languished, went away. Ron Holm, my partner, and I had gone through track selling training in the 80s together. Matter of fact, I had hired Ron, and we went through the training and we were pretty impressed. Ron went on to become a trainer for track selling through those years. And in the early parts of I think it was early 2010 or 2015, maybe as late, Ron and I got together for lunch. And I said, Ron, what are you doing with track selling? And he said, not much. Roy has passed away and the business is fading away. And I said, how would you like to regenerate or rejuvenate it? And he said, that'd be interesting. So we got together and we started the company in 2019 as the Track Selling Institute. And our vision was to be able to take the work that Roy had done and the foundation that he had established and leverage it into a training powerhouse. So we did that. We started in 2019, and of course in 2020 we had COVID. So our vision of doing training across the country was greatly interrupted. And the model had been a 3-day, the core offering was a 3-day in-person training session, a workshop. And of course, that was not possible anymore. So we basically turned the whole track selling model on its head, and we envisioned it as a Zoom or virtual training or offering. And so we went ahead and we really totally redid the training offering, moved it from an in-person training workshop to a virtual training workshop, and had tremendous success in 2021, 22, and 23, delivering it as a virtual workshop. In fact, people really preferred it because the old model was pretty expensive for everybody. To travel, a training group of salespeople for training to a specific location, took them out of the office, obviously travel expenses. So people were really attracted to this new model. So that was the first step in our evolution. The second step was to realize that training is not a one-time experience. In fact, if you look at a gentleman named Erman Ebbinghaus, the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve is a key component of our model because we find that after about 30 days, almost 80% of what you learned in the workshop or any training session is forgotten. So we realized that was a major limitation of sales training in general, and certainly of our training too. So we have spent the last 4 or 5 years really focusing on how do we make that training stick and how do we get people to reinforce their learning that they get in the initial workshop so that instead of 80% of their knowledge being lost, after 3 or 4 or 5 review sessions, only 20% is lost. And the skills and knowledge that they gain in that training are retained so that they can use them to be more effective salespeople.
Incredible. And I think that especially on that last note there, retain to where they can also apply it in any industry niche, any organization, right? That being sales is the most valuable skill in the world. So I want to shift to the present day as far as the core offer goes. What does that look like? Because I know you did talk about the virtual workshops at hand. How is it structured, primarily what you do for some of the clients? And then also, who is your ideal client that you work with? So it's a bit of a multi-part question, but I'd love for you to paint that picture for us.
Okay. First of all, let's talk about our client base. We have served over the years companies of all sizes, from IBM and Apple down to literally solo entrepreneurs. But our sweet spot is probably a company of 10 to 15, maybe as high as 25 salespeople. And they are looking for a model that allows them to set up sales as a process. A lot of organizations have no process. And so they realize that without a process, they really have no sales program at all. So our goal is to take these 10 or 12 or 15, 20 people and to build a process for them or help build the process with the track selling system. So that is really our sweet spot. And those companies can range all kinds of industries. We have had a special success in manufacturing, distribution. Those organizations seem to really take to the track selling model, but we've also served financial institutions, education, all kinds of other organizations. But that I'd call it small to medium sized company is really our sweet spot. We have focused in the last few years strictly on the US, although we have trained people in 22 countries, and Ron is actually very proficient in Spanish and has conducted many training classes in Spanish, but our primary focus is English in the US. What we've really done to evolve the business is to offer a number of products and services that allow you to refresh or reinforce the learning that you get in the main workshop. So we've developed tools like LearnTrack, which is an online version of our training, MicroTrack, which is designed primarily for sales managers to reinforce it with their sales teams. And now we're working on a series of podcasts that people can listen to while they're driving between calls or exercising, all the other places that you can listen to podcasts. And we've lately been working on a model, pretty much AI driven, that allows people to have a portal with all of the content related to their industry. So we're really becoming much more industry and even company focused with our training. So it becomes even more relevant to them. The general track selling workshop is generic. It's not industry specific, but it can be applied to pretty much any industry. But now what we're finding is that a lot of people really want industry specific information. And so we are now migrating to I'll call it the third phase of our development, which is really becoming much more industry and then even client specific.
Yeah, that's incredible from what it sounds like, really focusing on niching down, especially with some of the clients reaching out, wanting to find out, hey, how can this context be relevant to how we're communicating with our clients at the end of the day? Love the way that you guys are thinking about scaling, productizing, and that's really what that vision looks like, right? From what it sounds. Building on your growth, talk to us a little bit about client acquisition. How are you guys generating leads right now, whether that is paid ads, social media, organic, word of mouth, referral? What's been working best there for you guys?
Our most successful model is our former graduate or our graduates. So we have had, it's been a very interesting journey in the last couple of months, literally, where we have had people coming out of the woodwork saying, I graduated from track selling in 1995, and I am struggling with my sales organization, or I'm a consultant with a customer and they're struggling with their sales organization, and we want to adopt track selling as the model. So our most successful lead generation in the last 6 months or a year has been our graduates. Finding those people is a challenge, and we're working on techniques to dig those folks out of the woodwork or LinkedIn, wherever we can find them, so that we can leverage that knowledge. We find that a lot of the people that are graduates have contact with many companies. They, in many cases, are consultants or sales executives that are fractional, and they have access to a number of different companies. So we're trying to leverage that also. We've had limited success, to be perfectly frank, with cold outreach. Track selling is not a household name, to say the least. And so when we reach out to the marketplace, there's a hesitation or limitation of us being known. Now, when we start to reference our client base and the fact that we've worked with Hewlett Packard and Coca-Cola and Apple and many others, that brings some credibility, but there's still some skepticism. And the industry is really doesn't have any major players. There are a lot of companies that do sales training, but there's really no dominant player or an oligarchy like there is in a lot of other industries.
Right.
So a lot of people are struggling to figure out, who should I go with? What is the best methodology? What's the greatest approach to doing this? And once we expose them to our approach, we get a very high close ratio.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with cold outreach, this is a vertical where there's a ton of noise out there. Everyone's doing this essentially, right? And this is what we do as well as that closers, figuring that piece out, figuring out exactly how do we lend the messaging, reach out to our audience. And is this like an area where you guys feel like, hey, maybe bringing in like someone in-house, a marketing expert to maybe help with that, building predictability on the lead gen side? Is that sort of the next step for you as a founder as you're looking at scale and growth?
We've been doing most of the lead generation and marketing and social media outlet ourselves, and we're trying to figure out what is the next step, to be perfectly frank. We're finding that AI can have a huge impact on our business. And the fact that we can customize the message and customize the approach to specific clients is having a potentially large impact on our business. And so we're really in the midst of looking at that, and we're hoping to launch some campaigns this fall that allow us to go to the marketplace with a much more customized offering, customized messaging that allows us to appeal to the specific interests and needs of the clients that are in our target market.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, especially with AI being at our disposal, leveraging that to really create messaging that resonates with who you're going after, especially as you guys have diversified your offerings and you're going after a diverse set of audiences as well in that process. Uh,
Right.
as far as sales goes, like what is your process like? How does that look like with your sales team, all of that being structured? I'd love for you to share a little bit on what that looks like for the Track Selling Institute with our listeners.
The primary approach has been, or the primary success has been our graduates. And let me just give you an example. We had an interaction with a graduate who is actually acting as a sales consultant for a company in Arkansas. And so we got together with the owner of that company as well as our sort of our champion, we'll call it. And we went through, and the inside person, the champion, basically does hands off and lets us do the presentation and walk through. But we follow our methodology. So we have our 7-step sales process: approach, qualification, agreement on need, sell the company, fill the need, active commitment, and close the sale. So that 7-step process works for us as well as it does for our clients. And so we follow that model exactly. And what we did in this most recent conversation is we got to know each other a little bit, obviously, but 75% of the sale happens in that second step, or that first 3 steps, really. And the second step being the qualification. So asking great questions and listening are really critical. And so what we do is we literally follow our process. So we ask great questions. Now, with the technology we have, recording calls, AI summaries, and all of those kinds of things, it makes it a lot easier for us to track and track more accurately what those concerns and needs are so that we can respond to them and develop a really high quality agreement on need. So that agreement on need is really the statement between the two parties, the client and us, that basically says, this is what we want to accomplish. And we try to limit that down to 3, maybe 4 items, because it can be overwhelming if you try to do too much. But people typically have one or two or three really important things that they're trying to deal with.
Mm,
And so we follow through with that. We build that agreement on need. And then the
mm,
rest of it, if you do a good job with
mm,
that agreement on need, the rest of the sale really becomes fairly straightforward. Now,
mm.
we don't win 100%, unfortunately, but we do get, I think, more than our fair share because we follow that track selling methodology. And so the goal really is to get in front of people to tell our story. Roy Chitwood, the sort of founder of track selling, said that sales, you have to sell sales training. You
Yeah.
can't just take an order for it. People don't always get exactly what it's all about. So it's really important to get in front of the client, whether
Mm,
it's virtual or in person, and most of it's virtual these days,
mm.
and tell them exactly what they're going to get once you understand what their needs are. Does that help?
Yeah, 100%. And I have to ask, Mike, are you still in the day-to-day as far as sales goes? Still doing those calls? I have to ask.
Yeah, Ron and I are both very involved still in all the day-to-day sales, and especially as the deals get bigger.
Yeah.
It's really important for us because we don't want to lose our skill. We don't want to lose the track selling capabilities that we've developed over, in many cases, decades. And we find that we can be very effective in doing that.
Okay, amazing. So as far as you being in the day-to-day, handling the fulfillment as well, how are you navigating things as a founder? And something like we love talking about here, or as a CEO, what does that look like every single day, personal, professionally? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a challenge. We're trying to build an organization that's not terribly well known, become a national powerhouse in sales training. And so we've got a lot of things to do.
Mm,
And the challenge today is to try to how to balance our need for growth and our need for new clients with the back end systems to support that, with the customer service requirements that are necessary to keep our clients happy. So it's a challenge for both Ron and I, and we're not always good at it. We sometimes fall a little bit short, but I think we are getting better at trying to figure out how to make all those things work
mm.
and touch the right areas at the right time.
Yeah, 100%. And so probably with that is looking at delegation, scaling as well, maybe your team, so you guys can focus on being the founders, the CEOs, focusing on those activities. Is that kind of the next step for you guys as you're looking at?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a natural evolution. We're still a very small company. We've been using virtual assistants, people that are, in most cases, people, not necessarily technology, that have helped us out with marketing and sales and delivery. We're looking at ways that we can scale that more effectively.
Mhm.
We're of the mindset that we don't want to have a lot of employees.
Yeah.
We'd rather outsource most of that. And that gives us the flexibility to respond to the ups and downs of the business and of the business cycle. Ron and I are continuing to be pretty much the only employees, and what we're doing is we're finding other resources that can help us out when we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe bringing in someone to help with the closing, maybe someone to help with the business development, evolutionizing that approach there.
We've also developed an affiliate program
Hmm.
that we've been running for a couple of years, and these are people that are in, I think, every case,
Hmm.
graduates of track selling who have
Yeah.
their own business, but find that track selling is a good adjunct to the business that they're running, whether it's business brokering or it's fractional CEO, fractional CMO,
Yeah.
and finding people that have those connections into the marketplace that we can develop. And then they get a cut of the deal,
Hmm.
obviously, when we close a deal. And that's been a growing effort on our part to try to leverage ourselves and leverage the opportunities in the marketplace to become more successful.
Yeah, more visible as well. Giving back to some of the grads you work with, I love that. As far as like the runway for 2025, what does that look like for you guys 6 to 12 months from now? Paint that picture for us. Any performance milestones, any goals you guys are looking at? What does all of that look like?
We're looking to probably double or even triple our revenue in the next couple of years. Next year, let's just say, we think there's a tremendous opportunity. It seems like there's a real gap today based on our interactions in the marketplace, which, as you just heard, are pretty direct, with people looking for sales training. And I don't
Mm,
know if that's just people recovering from COVID
mm,
or what it is, but there seems to be a real thirst to have a model that they can follow that allows them to be even more successful.
mm,
And a lot of people are going back out to face selling.
Mm,
especially in that manufacturing and distribution space.
mm,
And so, what they have been doing for the last few years from the office
mm,
virtually is obviously not especially acceptable anymore or even prevalent, excuse me. And we're finding that a lot of salespeople are really, and sales organizations are
mm,
really wanting to rehone those in-person skills. And we're finding that a younger generation of salespeople may not have that experience. And so being able to run through a sales training organization and a sales training process that gives them hints or insights into how to be effective in a face-to-face meeting seems to be something that really resonates with the marketplace. So we're taking that kind of foundation, taking the expansion into the reinforcement and learning skills, and
mm.
then the customization. So those three different aspects of our business,
Right.
and taking that to the marketplace and finding a lot of success with organizations as we are able to customize it. And with AI, customization is becoming so much easier, and people really appreciate that and really understand it. We just developed a portal for a company that sells industrial equipment,
Mm,
and we had three sort of major topics. What's happening in the industry?
mm,
Surprising, a lot of people who are in the industry, especially salespeople, don't have a good picture of the overall industry. So providing them with a model that allows them to see what's happening overall in the industry with the personnel, with the players, major players, and those kinds of things. Then
mm,
understanding how buyers are evolving these days.
mm.
Buyers are different than they were 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and they have different tools available to them. They have different approaches. They have different expectations.
Mm,
And so what we are doing is we are helping them understand how the buyer is evolving and
mm,
how the buyer personality can tie into what they're trying to sell. And
mm,
then we've also focused in a little bit on the specific sales challenges
mm,
that they may have. So one organization we're working with really depends on demos, in this case, in-person demos of their equipment to
mm,
be able to sell it effectively. And if they can get somebody into a demo, they find that their close rate is extremely high. So we
mm,
focus some of our content on how do we get people into those demos and how do we manage them through that demo, training them how to do it. So that ability to customize the content
mm,
to their specific need is just incredibly powerful.
mm.
That people are responding very positively to that. So changing the foundation, understanding how we do it,
Mm.
building those reinforcement tools, and then customizing it are our three steps over the next few years.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. As far as like really the three main pain points that a lot of salespeople go through, especially in your industry, the industries you work with, being the industrial space and manufacturing, what are those exactly? And I'd love to learn a little bit more about that, especially for the listeners tuning in that maybe come from those spaces. What do you see typically as like a pattern for areas of improvement or just those like friction points?
Yeah, the problems that those organizations have are very typical.
Mm,
Getting in front of the right people,
mm,
that's clearly an issue. Learning how to sell to a team. Very few decisions are made anymore by one person, whether it's a purchasing agent or department head or whatever.
mm,
And so learning how to sell to a group of people is important. The other thing that we're finding is that team selling is becoming more and more prevalent. So you might have a salesperson and an engineer, or a BDR and a salesperson working together to attack that opportunity. So those are the things that people in general are having challenges with. How do we approach the buyer? How do we approach the buyer more effectively? How do we sell to a team? And how do we sell as a team?
yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that we're finding people are really struggling with and really wanting to find out how they can crack the nut there on
Mm.
on being successful with that.
Incredible. Now, a couple last questions before we do wrap up. I have a really fun one for you, Mike.
Okay.
Got a genie in the room, you rub the lamp, and now you have all these unlimited resources. What would you implement immediately to really accelerate the growth of the Traxel Institute?
I would get to those 250,000 graduates. Now, many of them are no longer around,
Right.
But if we could find those people, we find that we did a study several years ago in conjunction with Pepperdine University, and the vast majority, and I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but the vast majority of them consider track selling to be the best sales training they'd ever been through. And 95% of them would go through sales training, the track selling methodology again. So clearly, we have a huge fan base. And my wish would be, how do I get to those people and how do I connect with them again so that we can leverage the expertise and the knowledge and the connections that they have? That's clearly at the top of my list.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to what we were talking about earlier, figuring out the acquisition component, right? Really getting in front of your audience and scaling and building from there. Now, as far as like really how you see the sales industry evolving in the coming years, how is the Track Selling Institute positioning itself for that type of future, especially with generative AI on the rise? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we are trying to incorporate artificial intelligence into just about everything we do. So we're going to be rebuilding our website and using AI to help us build that. We're customizing this content for these portals. We are using it and planning to use it this fall, like I said, to generate custom messaging to our clients. So generative AI and all the AI tools that are available now are really critical to our future. And we also are trying to put AI tools in the hands of our salespeople that we're training. And so we're looking at mobile-based applications that can help translate an interest or a need into a benefit and those kinds of things. We call it our value proposition matrix.
Mhm.
So looking at ways that we can empower the salespeople with tools that are customized to run on their mobile applications or their desktop or both, and have things that they just didn't have access to before. That's going to become really critical for us.
Yeah, 100%. And really making sure that from a human-centric perspective, you're not losing that touch, especially
Right.
if people go in person as well. And a lot of salespeople now are back in the office, like post-COVID.
Yeah. And again, in our marketplace, a lot of the people are going back out to their customers. We deal a lot with people who have relationships with small businesses that are highly diverse, whether it's restaurants or auto body shops or all kinds of different businesses where they're literally going out, knocking on doors and meeting with the owner, the manager, or other key people in that organization face to face. And we're finding that people that do that effectively are really effective in their own sales efforts because that person to person connection, now that we've had sort of 5 years of being remote, that face to face is really important to people. And people want to be sold. They want to be sold, but they want to be sold in person and they want to get to know that person that they're buying. Our five buying decisions, salesperson, product, company, and time to buy, are the top one is the salesperson. And that salesperson relationship is so critical. And if you can build a good rapport, trust, and integrity with that salesperson, you have a very good chance of making that sale.
Yeah, 100%. Before we do wrap up, Mike, what's the best way for the listeners to get in touch with you and work with you potentially at the Track Selling Institute?
Yeah, you can contact me directly at mike.thomas@tracksellinginstitute.com. You can go to our website at tracksellinginstitute.com. We have on the homepage, we've got a contact us, and we would love to follow up with you. Those would be just a couple of ways that we could connect together. I'm also on LinkedIn. So Michael Thomas, Mike Thomas, there's 40 gazillion of them, but you can find the Mike Thomas at the Track Selling Institute. So yeah, all the standard ways that you can get a hold of somebody.
Incredible. On that note, that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible journey with really revamping the Track Selling Institute with your founder. Maybe on the next one, we can get him on and do a part two in 6 months. I think
That'd be great. I'm sure Ron would love it.
absolutely. And then as far as really reaching out, we'll link your LinkedIn profile in the summary below. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to, of course, subscribe to Founders Future, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and visit Mike. We'll link the website as well. And yeah, for more resources and insights, you can visit us over here at closers.io. We're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class sales and marketing systems. So until then, everyone, keep climbing, and we'll see you all on the next one.